It costs about $3,000 a year to keep a kid in school, but it costs about $8,000 to $10,000 to incarcerate them in jail. And most kids that don't go to school, there's no work out there, and they ultimately are going to end up in some kind of trouble.
Let's go! Let's go! Where's the bell ring? Come on, let's go!
A lot of the teachers here can't always handle all the students. It's basically you've got to fight for yourself. You've got to work yourself, or else you're going to go down the drain. You're not going to make it to a good college.
I think a lot of students just drop through, and there's no safety net, there's nothing there to catch them, and we just kind of have to let them go. We're victims of the system in that we can only do so much for so many.
Academic-wise, it's a drag. Well, I'm out there in the streets. I've been out there, 18 years. I've never used biology once, never used algebra. Why am I going to use it when I get out of school?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Somerville High, a 90-year-old school that sits on top of a hill overlooking a city of 80,000 people. Somerville High, not unlike most big high schools across this state, but here, as in most schools, the business of education is in trouble, deep trouble. In the next hour, you will see what goes on at a high school that is generally well regarded. Somerville is not the best Massachusetts has to offer, but it certainly is not the worst. Open a newspaper these days. You'll read of classrooms out of control, violence in the schoolyard. You will read that our schools are handing out diplomas to kids who are nearly illiterate, and that for the first time in this nation's history, children are not educated as well as their parents were. These discouraging reports are not raising our worst fears, they are confirming them. Why? One way of understanding the crisis in education is to take a close look behind the aging walls of one city high school.
What's the problem? What is the equity?
Huh? What did it say? It says you don't have to do nothing like this. You just have to record the entry in the General Journal.
Somerville High School is typical of most urban high schools, which is to say that its sheer size is overwhelming. Over 5 acres of floor space, daily crisscrossed by 2,500 students, almost 200 faculty and staff members, and one principal, Bill Fasciano.
Stop your fooling now. Stop your fooling. You have to make sure that the students understand what the goals and objectives of the school are, what the discipline code is, where they're expected to be. Now, this entails 22 to 2,500 kids making changes approximately 7 times a day. So you would have movement in the corridors of 14,000 kids.
The complex logistics of running a high school are indeed astounding, but this highly organized structure is tenuous. It takes remarkably little to send this fragile order into chaos. Bomb scares and fire alarms are common occurrences at Somerville High. As Bill Fasciano knows all too well, they are often the result of a kid acting out. The problem of discipline has so degenerated and disrupted the flow of education that it has forced radical changes in Fasciano's role.
Attention, please. All students should be back in their homeroom.
He is, above all else, a cop.
I'm a disciplinarian, probably a surrogate father for a lot of the kids. And therefore, I have to discipline them. I have to love them. I have to try to help them. I'm a psychiatrist at times. Sometimes I feel like I'm a minister and a priest. At times I'm a policeman, definitely, very definitely.
Girls, I'm going to tell you, don't hang on these corners on their property, all right?
At least twice a day, Fasciano logs several miles, circling the building, the grounds, and nearby streets. He looks for drugs, and he watches for potential fights.
It's a routine that I started with when I became the principal, and I feel very strongly about it. I think I'm a deterrent really out there. I think in the morning, what I really want them to know is that I'm going to be around.
Don't forget, you're here in plenty of time, all right?
You see Fasciano out there. We all walk by him. He's giving us these looks. It's Dick Tracy or something. He's got this leather on, He's got these big pants he'd never wear before, and he's trying to look inconspicuous and stuff.
Manny Carrera is 18 years old. Like many other kids, Manny comes here not to learn, but because it is the only refuge from a disjointed world at home and on the streets.
It's a whole different world, you know, out in the street. You gotta cope with reputation. Girls always coping with reputations. Guys, are you a fag or are you tough? I always gotta prove I'm tough. If everything's building up, you take a pill, you know? If you just don't, want to cope with the day, pop a pill. But then when you try to kick it and go straight, and you really don't want them anymore, you still need them. You still need them.
Manny's problems are not unique. 15 years ago, drug use was virtually unheard of on most urban high school campuses. Today, it is all too common. Irv Torben, Somerville High's drug counselor, estimates a shocking number of students get high daily.
You've probably got 300 to 500 students, I'd say a day, using drugs either before school, during school, or after school. I'd say that would be conservative.
I wanted for breakfast one day. I was really bummed out and stuff. I wanted to feel good, I overdid it. I drank a fifth of vodka, a couple of hits of mescaline, and I come in all screwed up. It all hit me at once, and I started swearing. I didn't care what I was doing, like I always do. Teachers weren't going to tell me what to do.
Just make sure you put it in the right envelope.
Scott, like Manny, comes to school with problems. His personal life is in such disarray that he can no longer cope with the pressures of school. He is considering dropping out.
If you don't want to learn, you ain't going to learn nothing up there. So it wouldn't matter. I'd probably just end up going and not doing my homework and just staying in class, taking up space,
You've been cutting classes, you've been truant, you haven't been going to detention. Recall that the suspension was really to have Mom and you sit down and decide, hey, where are we going, what's happening? And after talking to Mom on the phone and talking to you, we agreed that you needed some time to wrestle with this problem and see if we can get the thing resolved.
Robert Sorabella, one of the school's 3 building masters, may be Scott's last link to a high school education. Scott will take the weekend to consider the consequences of his decision. Meanwhile, Sorabella has other problems to deal with.
Next. Miss Murphy was very upset. She was upset with your attitude in the class, spitting out the window, which you didn't think was really all that bad a thing, but
I had a cold. Well, I started coughing. Something came up in my mouth. How am I going to swallow it?
Ask her for a tissue. That's exactly what she said. You said. I know. You told her that. Ask for a tissue. All right. I'll bring. If you know you have a cold, bring tissues with you. Or if you don't,
I had tissues.
Well, then use it.
Spit in the tissue?
Why not?
Perhaps the burden of a Somerville High is that it must address the widely divergent needs of its students. The same school that must deal with the frustrations of a Manny and a Scott must also provide for the enthusiasm of a Laurie Mirabella. Laurie came to Somerville High in her junior year.
First week, I sat in homeroom and I was depressed. I just felt like I wanted to cry. Then coming into the second week, I said, well, the only way I'm going to make friends is if I make the first move. So I did. I decided to run for student rep to school committee, and I just went around my nomination papers and went to everybody, even if I didn't know them. I just said, hi, I'm Laurie. I'm running for whatever it was, and they were like, oh, okay, and they signed it, and then we had elections the following week, and I made it, and I was so happy.
She's an example of a kid.
Who's this Pepsi? All right, Camilla?
Yeah.
Come on, sit down. Let's eat.
Fasciano's belief in the value of parental support is well-founded. The historic Coleman Report on Education and the more recent studies substantiate what every principal knows. Family life is a key element in a student's performance.
By then,
Come to the football rally?
have an answer. If it's going to be natural,
it might not even work at all.
About 11 o'clock to like 12 o'clock or something, just the last hour of school.
Yeah.
They give me a lot of support. Like my brothers always encourage me to do things like when I tell them I'm running for elections, because they're all older than I am. I'm their baby. So there's a lot of things that I've gone into. My parents understand that and let me go to meetings a lot. But at times, my father's still old-fashioned and I'm still a girl, and and he feels that the home is the place where you should be.
You don't see your sister today? Oh my God.
I can't even do it. How can you go by one day without seeing your sister? I give all the credit in the world.
Manny's home life is another story.
Oh boy, was I mentally abused. My mother was a very emotional lady. I love her and everything like that, you know, but she just was never there for me, you know. If I had a problem, I couldn't go to her. She wouldn't understand. Say, Ma, I'm hooked on drugs. She would not understand that.
Did you hear me?
Yeah.
When adults act like little children, Manny, then who's in the wrong?
It's not me. I'm not
That's
an adult.
right. You're not an adult, Manny. Far from it. He's the adult. You're the boy. Put your priorities, Manny, in the right places. You're a little mixed up.
With Manny, with all his personal problems that he has in his life, dealing with those problems, he can't come up here and cope with the school, and he's not alone. I mean, he's just one out of many, many students that we have that are barely hanging on by a silver thread.
Then I stood and looked down. You know I lost a lot of friends there, baby.
I can't cope with problems. I'm trying my hardest. A lot of times I wake up in the morning, I just don't want to cope with the day. You know, I say the same all day again, you know. I've been on this earth 18 years. There've been some good times, but a lot of bad times. And I can say there's been more bad times than good times. When you say to yourself, I'm 18 now, life sucks, life's a bitch. What's going to be in the future? You know, is it going to be any better or is it going to be worse?
The problems of adult society, drug abuse, broken homes, economic hardships, are also the problems of today's high school students. These problems are barriers that stand between the student and education. Recent reports on our educational system have been shocking. For example, students are performing not as well on standardized tests as their parents did 20 years ago. From 1963 to 1980, the average scores on scholastic aptitude tests plummeted more than 50 points in English. 36 points in math. 13% of all 17-year-olds are considered functionally illiterate. The implication of these statistics is that our educational system is failing. And this disturbing fact is no better illustrated than in Somerville High. For here, as in other schools across this country, the very real toll is taken in the classroom.
I asked you what the structure of a nucleotide was, just exactly how are these compounds bonded together?
Like a ladder?
No. Could you put it on the board? Could you do anything? Yes, you can. Bob, can you put it on the board? A nucleotide? Any old nucleotide? I'll take anything. I should have taken the week off.
Doris Costello has taught science at Somerville High since 1946. She has seen firsthand the skills of today's students compared with those of a decade ago.
Far less verbal and far less articulate, very sloppy in language, very, very careless. I think today's student does not communicate by speech to the same extent that pupils did, say, 20 years ago. There's no question about that. Okay, put it on again. You've never seen it. You haven't seen it because I haven't done it for fully 24 hours, I don't think.
Costello teaches physiology to one of the higher levels at Somerville High, the college-bound students. But even these kids show a poor grasp of basic skills. Daily, she is shocked by the poor performance of these, the better students.
What is a gene? Segment of DNA, proteins. Now, these are supposed to be definitions. What is a chromosome? Piece of DNA, sets of genes. I don't like the way it is expressed because it's a little bit fragmentary. What is a gene? The determiner of inheritable characteristics. As far as I'm concerned, a diffuse definition, and we've had lesson after lesson on that. What is the role of ribosomal RNA? It, small it, makes the amino acids, I can't read it, free or glue or something. I think people can't write because, first of all, they don't read.
2 pages. Who wants to get started? Just 1 paragraph. Alan, we'll start with you and we'll go right along.
His features were good, straight nose.
Alan Roycroft has a dream of going to college, but it may be a bittersweet dream. This year, as a senior, he is taking reading.
Eventually, this was no vulgar assassin. The liberal military code makes provisions for hanging many kinds of persons, and gentlemen are not excluded.
Okay.
Nearly half of the 17-year-olds across this country cannot understand what they read. Why? Bill Fasciano can point to what at least is a factor.
In a community like Somerville, kids come to school really not prepared.
Are we passing kids along in the lower grades that we shouldn't be?
Yes, we're passing kids along that we shouldn't be passing.
Why are we doing that?
We're doing that because of the social feeling and attitudes of why should a kid stay in a room for 2 or 3 years? We'll move him along. Maybe the next year he'll catch on. Maybe we'll give him some remediation. Maybe something miraculous will happen. We're dealing with a great number of kids whose reading ability is low. So rather than face the issue of trying to upgrade their reading ability, it's much easier to give them a book in which the vocabulary and in which the content is something they can handle.
Eddie Conley, Bonnie Tanner.
This is study hall at Somerville High. 40 years ago, kids such as these wouldn't have been in high school. 40 years ago, high school was a very different place. Although a free public education has always been a cherished American ideal, up until World War II, high school was considered a prep school for college. Its curriculum was limited, and those students who couldn't fit in dropped out. Nationally, in 1940, the dropout rate was over 50%. Most kids in Somerville never even made it to high school. But that has changed. Somerville High, like every other high school, has found a way to keep its kids in school. Dropout rates have decreased dramatically. Once a specialty store for the few, high school has become a supermarket for the many. Somerville High in the 1980s must provide for every student who walks through its doors. The mentally handicapped, the student who doesn't speak English, and even someone like Manny.
I flunked out all 3 years because I felt like I didn't know what I wanted to be in life. I don't know what I'm going to do. When I get out of high school, whoopee shit, I got a diploma. What am I going to do? Go to college?
We take every kid from this community, no matter what, no matter whether they're an outstanding student, whether they're a poor student, whether they can read or they can't, we have to take them. And we have to try to find some place to put them into our school system, to develop them at their rates, to produce a person that will be a viable student when he graduates, whether it be to work or whatever their choice is, college, I don't care.
And Somerville High does try to provide something for everyone. For Manny, it's the skills of a trade.
I have to get my diploma, my trade, what I want to do. And if I start getting money in, and I start leading my own life, maybe life will get a little better, you know?
For Lori, there is a business and secretarial program.
They offer typing, stenography, word processing, secretarial training, just whatever you want to do, they gear you for it. It's just up to the student to grab for it, to go for it, to want to learn.
And why go over there with all those rich, preppy snobs and be out of place and work so very hard with the academics and not get anywhere? And I'm here to try and convince you that there are a lot of reasons to go right next door, that it's a whole nother world over there.
And for those students with academic ambition, there is the road to that other world. George Leach is a recruiter from Harvard.
And how many people here have road crew? Not a lot. How many people have played squash? That's another thing. You might go down there and find out that that's a great game. And I don't think that any of the students that have come to Harvard from Somerville have felt that it's been a detriment because they lived right next door. You're right close by, you know the area, you know the ins and outs, but you can still get over there and get totally lost.
Each year, Harvard accepts 2 or 3 students from Somerville. This year, Karen Kearney hopes to be one of them.
I made up my mind early in my life that I wanted to get everything I could out of education, to make myself the best person I could. And it's true that all the students at Somerville High School are given the same opportunity. It's just, does that student want to go out and make the extra effort?
What is truth? Is it something you believe? Are you telling me there are 12 gods because you believe it? No, I say.
Edmund Hayes hopes that Somerville High is his ticket to a first-rate college and eventually a career in politics. Hayes is one of the school's more motivated students.
See, there's almost an elitist feeling if you're in level 1. If you're in level 1, you're better than the crowd, you deserve more, and you get more usually. Like, for example, I've had to have course changes made. They're made in 1 day for me. For a person in the middle of the group, take a week, 2 weeks. The Oracle called me the smartest man in the world. And I do accept that because I have found no man that is smarter. I think Somerville High School and the administration realizes that they can't reach all the students. It's almost an economic impossibility. So instead of trying to reach all the students and dispersing funds, I think what they do is concentrate on the higher level students. The true man that is wise is the man who searches, and the man who always asks the question.
And into this world of specialized education walks Alan Roycroft. But Somerville has served the needs of so many others that when the average student reaches for his share, there is little left. It just may be that a watered-down education is not an education at all.
His features were good: straight nose, firm mouth, broad forehead, for which his hair, long, dark hair, was combed straight back, flowing behind his ears into the collar of his well-fitted frock coat.
The urgent problems in the nation have given rise to a heated debate, a flurry of finger-pointing, mostly aimed at the teachers. A stinging report last year by the Carnegie Commission said a shocking number of teachers are incompetent or barely competent. The best and the brightest, it is charged, are leaving education to go into more lucrative fields, leaving the nation's classrooms in the hands of people who finish near the bottom of their graduating class. Rigid teacher contracts are said to influence what should be purely educational decisions, sometimes putting teachers in charge of subjects they barely understand themselves, unfair to both them and the students. And the tenure system has been attacked as protecting incompetence. Now, the teachers, on the other hand, bemoan poor working conditions, overcrowded classrooms, and especially low pay. How, teachers ask, can the system expect to keep qualified professionals at salary levels more suited to unskilled labor? And perhaps the worst news for teachers was the arrival of Proposition 2.5, the 1980 tax reform which effectively cut money for city services such as fire and police. But across this Commonwealth, no area was affected as dramatically as education.
As the bell rang yesterday, we were underlining the items that would be useful for a topic to argue. For example, Kenny had underlined that he can't stand the fact that Somerville is instituting a parking permit. That would work better than I can't stand chopped liver.
Due to Proposition 2.5, the face of education changed dramatically. In Somerville, the school system lost $2.5 million. Junior high schools closed, and 30 courses were dropped from the high school curriculum. While the effects of these cuts are still being felt, there was a more immediate impact: layoffs.
It started with Prop 2.5. We had to, when the school committee came out with its ruling that seniority would prevail and that the last to come would be the first to go, we lost a great deal of talent. The younger teachers with the new ideas, with the ones that want to become innovative, that want to get involved in curriculum committees, that want to see new things being done.
How might you approach a feature on Mr. Fasciano? I mean, a lot of people confuse him with Mr. Fideli.
Kathy Skinner is among the more fortunate. Although let go in 1980, she eventually got her job back. But the layoffs left a bitter taste.
The effect of the layoffs was certainly negative, and I think that the morale is still fairly low. I think that maybe there was a level of trust between administration and the teaching staff that is not the same now. I don't mean the school administration, but rather the systems administration. The system thinks you're expendable. They're sending a message to you, you know,
that is going to impact on how you feel about yourself and how you feel about the job that you do.
So if someone says something to you and you don't really want to talk about it, you say, oh, by the way, how's your sister? And that way you can change the subject.
Since Prop 2.5, Kathy Kenny has been fired every spring and rehired every fall. Added to the uncertainty of this employment merry-go-round are the constantly changing teaching assignments. Although trained in U.S. history, this year she is teaching bilingual courses.
I would be willing to spend time in the summer getting ready for a course, but I don't always know what I'm teaching, and I never find out till the first week in September after the students have arrived at school. And so that's something that I have to try and deal with the first couple of weeks, and I've often been assigned courses that I would, in all honesty, say I'm not totally qualified to teach, and so you have to make do at the last minute.
Did the closeness of the intruder, whether it's Michelle or Jeannie, affect the subject's response?
The layoffs and scrambled teaching assignments were only the beginning. Prop 2.5 effectively doubled the load of those teachers who remained. It gave Gretchen Kelly more classes to teach and more students in each class.
It's physically and emotionally tiring. I have 150 students a day. I have another 30 in homeroom and another 30 in study. So I don't have a moment to relax from the time I get up at 5:30 in the morning until the time I collapse after I've cooked dinner and done my chores, done my schoolwork, and then I just go to bed and I get up and do the same thing. So I am like the rat in the cage on the wheel. I can't seem to get off. You just keep going and going and going until you collapse, until you get physically sick, or until emotionally it just gets you down.
I have staff that are working so hard you can't believe it, but it's just a matter of when it reaches a peak where they become so frustrated that they can't produce. They can't do day in and day out. We become burnouts.
The school system has survived because teachers have subsidized the cuts. We have subsidized the cuts by picking up the slack.
Dr. Fiorello. Take the machine down there and get all the kids that are down here a trade, all right?
Despite the increased demands placed on teachers, both inside and outside of the classroom, they remain among the lowest paid of any profession. Over a 10-year period, the purchasing power of teachers' salaries slipped 12% nationally and 21% here in Massachusetts.
The public looks at them as second-class citizens. They're getting $12,000 to $14,000 to start, and at the max of their life, they make $22,000 and $23,000. That's outrageous. They're professional people.
Well, I think that our society is right now so materialistic, and we are so low on a pay scale that we are regarded as slightly idiotic.
Slightly idiotic to teachers, perhaps, but study after study questions whether taxpayers are getting enough for their money when it comes to teachers. They suggest there should be a periodic recertification to prove teachers are competent in the areas they must teach. And they further suggest there needs to be a relaxation in the rules of tenure. And yet, the studies do show that without an upgrading of the salary scales, upgrading the quality of teachers nationwide is nearly impossible.
When you're doing your testing, first test for 0.
For 0?
All right. Test A for 0, test B for 0.
Low salaries are darkening the future of quality education. The best and the brightest no longer turn to teaching, and of those that do, many don't stay. Stan Vergnani is the third computer teacher at Somerville High in 3 years.
I'm recently married, recently bought a home. Can I look ahead 15 years down the road and see myself surviving with a family economically on teacher salary? I don't know if I can see that. Or will I find myself teaching in the daytime, working in the afternoons, working on the weekends, working through the summer? I mean, I might be able to handle that now, but 20 years from now or 15 years from now, that'll be too much.
Miss Murphy, I'm getting out of that class. I'm getting into a different study. Because she gets on my back whenever I'm there. Well, I'm there 3 days a week, and every time I go in, until you do this, sir, don't do this, sir. Get your head up, sir, do your work, sir.
All right, but you got to read people.
in life, Jimmy, you're going to be working for different people. Some guys you can play it one way, and some other people you read differently, and you have to do it their way. They're the boss.
2 years ago, Bob Sorabella was principal of one of Somerville's junior high schools. But during the turmoil of Prop 2.5, he was demoted.
I was a finalist for superintendent a year and a half ago. So, I mean, my work was being recognized, but people were saying, you gave us 12 fantastic years. You know, we feel that you were an outstanding administrator. But, Bob, we're awful sorry. We have to take $6,000 away from you. We have to take 2 titles away from you. We're going to put you in a position you really don't want. And it's just bitter, just totally bitter as to what's happened. Okay, Wayne, needless to say, if I found out you weren't here on Thursday or Friday, period 3, I would get a little upset. All right? We're gonna assume, we'll take your word for it this time, Wayne. All right? Okay? I have very little faith for public education. I really do. I don't know where we're going. I think we're really hurting. When I say public education, it's within the realms that I'm in. I'm in this city for 24 years. So maybe Winchester's going to make it. Maybe Brookline's going to make it. Gee, I don't think Somerville is.
Time cut.
Outside of the classroom, away from the problems of morale and money, students at Somerville High can escape to a world where their energies find expression, where they can do what they do well.
Somerville High is here to meet you with a special message. We'd like to greet you. Your spirit so strong, it radiates. Your team is so awesome and really great. So, color red and blue would like to say hello to you.
Let's go, hang in, you wait for the ball. You run through this. Great shoulder on one.
On a cold Wednesday afternoon, the Somerville High football team takes to the practice field in its continuing quest for glory on the gridiron. Number 64, co-captain, Alan Roycroft.
I think if it wasn't for football, I wouldn't have went to school because I had a hard time when I went to school. Like junior highs, it's ridiculous, you know, a lot of punks, you know. I couldn't take it. Then, you know, when I came in the 9th grade, that's when you were able to play football as a freshman. So I played then. I did all right, so I stayed in school.
Last year, I would have said that Alan probably was headed for problems. Not serious problems at this point, but I don't think that he really was his own boss. I think he was a follower. And I think this year, mostly through athletics, he's a very, very fine football player. I think Alan now realizes that there is potential for him, that he has ability, and that he's a leader. He's truly a leader.
To be captain, it's like people need you, you know. You have responsibility for a lot of people. If you have responsibility, that, you know, gives you pride inside that all of them wanted you to be captain, all of them wanted to lead, all of them wanted them to lead you, you know. So, you know, the coaches had faith in me, the players had faith in me. So now, it helped me out a lot to mature.
She's like real mad?
Yeah, she didn't even smile. I was trying to crack a few jokes. She
Did she say anything about Anne Marie?
No, she didn't. She goes, oh, who's he down there with? Oh, no, just me, Stan, and John. You're lying. Oh,
She said something about that girl. She said something about Lisa.
Yeah, Lisa.
What about Cheryl Hannigan? Say anything about her?
Cheryl Hannigan, too? Barry, you're in trouble.
You were going to say Scott Mullen? Yeah, I sit next to him 5th period and I drool all period.
I
I was walking down the hallway, me and Jennifer, there was some fat kid walking, so we whistled, and Scott Monk was walking out the hallway, and he goes, who are you whistling at? And we're like, all turned front.
More popular than football, cheerleading, or band is the simple pleasure of conversation, for it is the ease of friendship that smooths the rough edges at Somerville High.
You better graduate this year, because if I see you next year, you won't be around.
I ain't gonna be here next year anyway. A lot of people come to school because everyone's there to have a good time, you know, I get to talk to everybody, you know what I mean? Like, my home, I had no one to talk to. I never talked to anyone home. I had my friends, and that's where it is, your friends. I don't care what anyone ever tells you, your friends will always be there. If they're your friends, they'll be there for you.
The friends you're with, you're just happy when you're with them. You know, you can talk about things that happen in school, the funny things, the bad things, but you always end up laughing. You know, and it's great.
I'm out sometimes in the streets in the morning, and I see the same kids because they're with their friends, and this sort of like is a little community to them in a home within a community. And they come in, and they really enjoy this, not so much for the academics, but for the social aspect.
You've been so good to me. You know you make me wanna lift my head up and throw my head back and come on now, come on now, come on now, come on now, take it easy, take it easy, take it easy, take it easy, a little bit something now, a little bit something now.
You know, the dances are just, you know, you just go, and everyone's there. You know, everyone just has fun. I mean, you can say the kids go crazy, but in the sense that everyone is real happy and just has a good time. There's never any fights, no drugs or anything like that. So it's, you know, it's just a good time and it's something to do.
Once upon a time there was light in my life, but now there's only love in the dark. Nothing I can say, total eclipse of the heart.
For some, it is more than just a good time. It is a universal rite of passage, the first bloom of romance.
Girlfriends are great, man, I'm telling you. They're great. If the girlfriend's really a dynamite girlfriend, she'll help you out, man. I'm telling you, she'll get you right on the track. It means a lot to me, you know? She helped me a lot. She was always there. If I had a problem, she was there.
I'm engaged to be married to Stephen Brown. He was president of the school 2 years ago when he graduated. The night Stephen proposed to me was probably the happiest night of my life because we had planned on getting married, and as like the first month that we started going out, we opened up a savings account because we knew we wanted to get married, and we faced reality. So that night we went to the Spinnaker room and we had dinner, and then after dinner he just took it out, took his ring out, and I mean I was expecting maybe a friendship ring or a piece of jewelry or something, and he just pulled out the ring, and it was gorgeous. It was in a little glass case, and he just, you know, and he said, take this ring. Now with this, take this ring and wear it as a symbol of your love for me and as a symbol of my love for you. Take it and say, you'll marry me. And I started crying. I was so happy.
Have you decided if you're going to have premarital sex or not, and how do you feel about it? Now, we didn't get into that too much because we said, if you say no, there's no decision making, is there? You must have thoughts on the subject. Who'll start? What do you think? Are you for it or against it?
You can't say it's wrong to have premarital sex. It might be wrong for you, but it might not be wrong for someone else.
It is called marriage class, and while many consider it an educational frill, at Somerville it has an important and practical purpose.
Everybody says it's wrong, right? But what if you say...
Everyone says it, don't they?
Well, people say it's wrong, some people. And say somebody thinks they're in love, and they really want to do it.
I was 14 years old when my son was born.
I was almost 6 months pregnant when I told my mother. I was so scared I didn't know how to tell her. And then it kind of got obvious. I started getting fat.
Janet Armstrong was 16, Joe DiMattia 14, when their son Andrew was born. Unmarried, Janet and Joe live at home with their respective parents.
Pretty young. I know kids that are younger than me that have kids. Half my friends call me a kid with the kid. That's why. Plus, I can name like 4 people in the high school that I know pretty close to that have kids too.
this winter, it'll be his first winter. He'll only be able to go out once in a while, and I love the snow. Maybe around that time I'll say, I wish this didn't happen. I want to play in the snow. It won't be the same, like going out every day. It's not.
I think what's happening is that the young kids are starting to accept the fact that having a baby is not taboo. It's not something that you should hide anymore. I think the common thing now is kids want to keep the baby, which was really unheard of. And they go through the total pregnancy. And one of the goals we have is to try to keep that young parent in the frame of mind of wanting an education.
He puts in the merchandise inventory, the other one puts in cash.
Equal to the thing.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Then you're in.
It is the task of Somerville High to try and keep not only pregnant mothers in school, but the entire student body. The results are often disheartening.
We have a very high dropout rate in Somerville, as does Boston, as probably does any major urban area. Some of them are dropping out because they have to work. Some of them are dropping out because they're not getting anything out of education, or they don't see that they are.
Are you telling me, Scott, that as far as you're concerned, school is impossible, you just can't hack it?
Yeah, right now, yeah.
Okay. You need some time? I feel strongly against that. But you've got to convince Mom that school isn't for you. It's not working out, at least now.
After his weekend of consideration, Scott did decide to leave school and look for work.
Just couldn't hack it. Precious. That's it. Doing homework and stuff like that. Working, staying. Plus, parents don't get along too good, So it was always arguments, at my house with school. They get in trouble in school, so just didn't like it, Rather work, make money, work.
What chance does he have of making it without any further education? And you worry about that. And you worry about some of the things you could have done or what used to be done for a youngster. There'd be further follow-up, etc. Cut back in staffing, the cut back in guidance. There's not enough of that done. We've narrowed ourselves to a certain group of youngsters. It isn't so much the one I'm working with, but you worry about the one that keeps walking by that door.
In a decade, perhaps even less, the younger brothers and sisters of all the Lauras and Allens and Mannies will be looking toward their own high school years. And what will they find? Well, without a dramatic change, they'll find an education even worse than their siblings, who received one even worse than their parents. For Somerville, for most high schools, the big budgets that administrators cry for will not come this year or next year or the year after that. Only well-heeled communities are likely to find the extra dollars to pour into their schools. For the majority like Somerville, help, if it is to come, will have to come from elsewhere. And yet, somehow, Somerville High survives. The majority of its graduates do go on to college or skilled jobs. And the people who believe in this school have faith in that intangible something that keeps institutions going long after they should have collapsed. The kids simply call it school spirit, the notion that Somerville High is theirs, for better or worse. School spirit can't buy textbooks or drug counselors. It can't fix broken homes or teach kids Shakespeare. But it can make all this a bit easier for the people who work here, who learn here, who send their kids here.
Hi, my name is Laurie.
And I'm Elaine, and we
are MCs for the Somerville High School 1983 football rally. And psych yourself out, because our boys are going to walk away with it this year. Is everybody psyched?
introduction. He is the man who has been behind us in everything we've done. Our headmaster, Mr. Fasciano.
Thank you, Laurie. Thank you very much.
Oh, he's got a speech.
Of course I have. Thanksgiving is the day of traditional rivalry in schoolboy football. Tomorrow, all across America, schools will meet in an annual football game. For the football team, this one game becomes a season. We have a good team. They have worked hard and long. They have had bad breaks, but have always worked and given of themselves to overcome any adversities. You are the reason they want to win. To know that you are there is important to them. Please show your school spirit, be at the game, cheer, and help this team on to victory. Let's have a happy Thanksgiving win, a happy Thanksgiving Day, and let's show that Somerville leads the way. Let's cheer them on.
And now we have Somerville High School's very own football coach, the man who has led us and the man who will lead us into victory, Coach Storfer.
All right, right now, what I'd like to do is to introduce all the seniors. Craig Duhamel, co-captain. Russell Castor. Alan Roycroft. Pat Spaduto. This is it. There is no more tomorrow. Even though they have all these nice facilities, darling, hey, we are still a better team. I know it in my heart. Do you think that they are better than you are? No! Do you think they try harder than you do? No! Do you believe you're going to win? Yes, Coach!
Unfortunately, enthusiasm doesn't register on the scoreboard, and by the end of the third quarter, Somerville was facing certain defeat. For the students, it would be a disappointment, as so many things are at Somerville High. And yet, there is an expectation among these kids that tomorrow brings another chance. It's enough to keep people like Bill Fasciano going.
I love the kids so much that I think it keeps me going. I think it gives me the energy, and I think it gives me the ability to come back, because the kids are the greatest product we have. I mean, I will sell this school to anybody, because given what we have to work with, I think we do a magnificent job.
Well, you know you make me wanna kick my heels up and throw my hands up and throw my head back and come on now, don't forget to say you will. Don't forget to say yeah, 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 yeah. Say you will. Say it right now, baby. Say you will. Come on. Say you will. Say that you will. Say that you love me. Say that you need me. Say that you want me. You wanna please me. Come on now.